So, for all the talk about New York Islanders prospects that have been good, that have been alright, we had talked about the Aatu Ratus of the world, we have talked about the Oliver Wahlstroms too. But when it comes to the guys that were supposed to be great, guys at the top of the draft, and guys that you really, absolutely cannot whiff on when you make these picks, the one that comes to mind right away for many Islanders fans was the headliner of what was otherwise a pretty okay draft. You see, the Islanders in 2014 had themselves a pretty mixed bag when it comes to the players they had taken. In the 78th overall spot, the Islanders selected Ilya Sorokin, who was pretty good. You also had yourselves Devon Toews taken in the 4th round. That was eventually traded to Colorado, but he's a good player, so we'll give the Islanders credit there. But in the 1st round, the Islanders drafted with the 28th overall pick Josh Ho-Sang, a guy whom we've already talked about on the channel as being one of the bigger busts in this team's history. However, he is not the biggest one. Not by a long shot. In fact, if you wanted to go even further with the 2014 busts within the Islanders organization, look no further than the guy that was taken 23 picks before Ho-Sang in the 5th overall spot. You had yourselves a guy that was supposed to be a lot better than he became, and his name was Michael Dal Colle. Now, Dal Colle has been a very intriguing prospect ever since he had been drafted by the Islanders. He spent his entire career with the Islanders organization, but even though he was a 5th overall guy, even though back in 2014 he was a really good OHL player, 95 points, 67 games played with the Oshawa Generals, and of course, because he was taken from the Generals, there was already a connection that people automatically made regarding him and John Tavares. But long story short, he never took that success in the OHL to the NHL. Sure, he was okay in Bridgeport for a few years, 41 points, 75 games played in 2016-17, but as the years went on, Dal Colle became a full-time Islander, playing a few games here and there, inserting himself into the lineup and eventually getting sent back to the AHL once more. And in 22-23, you finally saw this guy leave North America straight up. He went over to TPS Turku, had 19 points in 36 games. He is now in Germany playing for the Roosters in the DEL in 23-24. But going back to the beginning here, Michael Dal Colle was supposed to be a beast. Just an absolute stud in the OHL. If we go over to Dobber Prospects and read the scouting report for him back then, this is a write-up from almost 10 years ago, November 2013, written by Brendan Ross. Michael Dal Colle is coming off a career-high 5-assist game versus the 67s on November 5th. The big, rangy winger has demonstrated elite vision and playmaking ability in the early games of his draft season. His ability to find open lanes and execute crisp passes opens the ice up for his teammates, and scoring chances almost immediately flow. Dal Colle's style of game reminds me of Joe Thornton, as he really slows the game down with his patience, possession skills, and passing ability. Eventually, after getting drafted, he was supposed to be the guy that could be the heir to John Tavares' left side, but whether that happens now or in the future remains to be seen. I want to be a big part of this team in the future and make a good impression, and that's what I'm trying to do, Dal Colle said. He roomed with Ryan Strome over the summer and continues to bunk with the talented center. The Islanders will hope that Strome can ease Dal Colle into pro hockey with some experience he picked up last year. That was written in September of 2014. And so when it comes to this guy, we haven't really gone too much over, the path, what exactly happened in his years as a prospect with the Islanders, how he didn't really translate to the NHL. We haven't gone into the nitty-gritty details about that. We just kind of said, hey, here's a guy. But in this video, the main point I wanted to present was an interview done by the New York Post with Garth Snow, the Islanders GM at the time. Now, the article is behind a paywall, so you're going to have to subscribe to NY Post if you want to read it, but there is an article on eyesonowls.com wherein the transcript of what Garth Snow says is published again. Here's the title. Ex-New York Islanders GM Garth Snow shoulders the blame for drafting Michael Dal Colle, as well as Josh Ho-Sang. Now, we made a video a few weeks ago talking about how Ho-Sang's time is running up, but for Michael Dal Colle, this guy's time is already done in the NHL. And if you take a look at the comments made by Garth Snow in his interview, he says that the Dal Colle one is my fault. My scouts at the time, they wanted Nikolaj Ehlers. And it doesn't take a genius if you go over to the draft history and see where things went. Nikolaj Ehlers went a few picks later to the Winnipeg Jets, and that guy is at 396 points and 523 games played in the National Hockey League. In fact, if you go over to Ehlers' recent season, 38 points, 45 games played. He had 60 points multiple years before getting sidelined with injuries the past few seasons. Ehlers is a fantastic player, one of the best on the Jets, and apparently all the scouts in New York wanted Ehlers instead of Dal Colle, but there's a reason why Garth didn't take him. Michael Anderson on Twitter went out there and cited the article saying this: Garth Snow blames himself for drafting Michael Dal Colle, saying that his scouts indeed wanted Nikolaj Ehlers, but Snow chose Dal Colle because Ehlers had the same agent as Nino Niederreiter. And this argument is one that really doesn't make sense in hindsight, but when you kind of try to look at where things came from and why this happened, a tweet reply goes out there and articulates it pretty well. If anyone needs this translated, the Islander scouts wanted Ehlers. Garth did not pick him to avoid dealing with Nino Niederreiter's agent, who, a year prior, gave Garth Snow a hard time. Now, Nino Niederreiter is also a player who was on the Islanders for a while, and unfortunately, his tenure with the Isles wasn't all too great. He was drafted by them 5th overall as well in 2010, so there's the similarities there. And the Islanders back in this time frame, I mean, they didn't really give Nino his opportunity. He was this amazing scorer in the WHL, but in his NHL campaign, Nino Niederreiter had 2 points in 9 games in his first season. Okay, that's fine. And then 1 goal in 55 games the next season. Pair that up with a minus 29 and you have a season that any agent is going to be clamoring about and asking your team, hey, what the hell is going on here? Now, we know that Nino Niederreiter ended up becoming a pretty good player. He played for the Wild, he played for the Hurricanes, he played for the... Who else is he on now? Yeah, the Predators last year and then the Jets this year. He was okay. But the Islanders had a very poor time developing this guy, which is why Garth Snow says he did not take Ehlers, because Ehlers was represented by the same agent as Niederreiter, and Garth did not want to have to deal with this guy furthermore. And I could understand the logistics of saying, okay, all my scouts want one guy, I want this other guy, I'm just going to take the other guy because I'm the GM, I do what I want. But this reasoning, man... I get it, it was 10 years ago. We shouldn't really be all too upset about this, and I think a lot of Islanders fans could say that their team ended up becoming better for it. But wow. Take a look at how this went down. Imagine not taking a guy who eventually became a 60-point player in his peak because you just didn't want to deal with his agent. Michael Dal Colle instead is your consolation prize, and he's labeled as one of the bigger busts in this team's history, too. Now, I know you could say there are a lot of busts, actually, that the Islanders had in this time frame. Griffin Reinhart, Ryan Strome, Nino Niederreiter, and then, of course, Dal Colle and Ho-Sang. Good for you, though. At least things started to get better, as next season you got Matthew Barzal and everybody else started to come out afterwards. But at the end of the day, Garth Snow went out there and pretty much revealed everything at hand. Why the Islanders took Dal Colle in that 5th overall spot. If you wanted more of an extended look as to Josh Ho-Sang, because that guy was also talked about in this interview too, then the link is going to be in the description to the eyesonowls.com article. Of course, the regular New York Post article is there as well, but you do need a paywalled subscription to read that one. So when it comes to the Isles, I could at least appreciate that Garth Snow is taking accountability. It just doesn't make the situation feel better, though. Do you know what I mean? So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this entire Michael Dal Colle situation? How do you think the Islanders would have differed had the scouts just been listened to? If the wishes of the rest of the Islanders scouting staff were just listened to? What if the Islanders took Nikolaj Ehlers and he became the good player that he is today, but on the island? What would have happened with the rest of your draft picks? How would things have gone since then? If you had Ehlers this entire time, do you beat Tampa Bay at least once in the playoffs? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.